go back to Matthew. I need to go back myself. Matthew chapter 14. The first book of the New Testament. We're looking at 22 through 33. And remember, Jesus just fed 5,000 people plus women and children. He's sending them home and sending his disciples. Y'all go ahead and get on the boat. Y'all go. Go ahead. Sail over there. Like, Jesus ain't nobody staying with you. No, y'all go ahead. Y'all go. I'm going to go pray. That's a powerful thing right there. Jesus just performed a miracle and he's not celebrating. He's sending everybody away and now he's going to pray. He's trying to get refilled spiritually. That's a key thing. I don't know if you've ever allowed God to use you to the point where you've been drained, right? Because that's an absolute real thing. Functioning and pouring out your gift drains you. It makes you weak. And so you got to get away and pray. Now, here's the thing. Some of you have never allowed yourselves to be poured out for the Lord. And so you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you allow yourself to be poured out, like you give your all for his glory, you will walk away spiritually vulnerable. And you need time to be buffered. And so Jesus gives himself that by sending the disciples away, sending the people away, and going on to a mountainside. Well, mountainside. After he dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. I think there's a powerful thing in that even when we're successful, we need to be in prayer. We don't need to be people that are just too busy taking victory laps to get in our time with the Lord. But Jesus had just taught powerfully, fed people miraculously, sent the people away, sent his disciples away, and now he's praying. It says about 3 a.m, the boat was further away, and Jesus, it's rocky waters, they're being bounced around by waves. Jesus decides to follow them, or Jesus decides to go meet them. And so I pick up in about, verse 25, it says, shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. I love this because when I read the next part, it always reminds me of Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, anyway, like it goes here, and they say, when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. And in my mind, it's like, it's a ghost. Like the cartoon, like they said, like it's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. I mean, today we're so skeptical that I don't know if people would cry out in fear. Like they've been trying to tell us there's aliens out there. And you're like, I'm too busy for that. Like this foolishness, they should have told us decades ago. Like I need to pay my rent. Like people don't even care all this stuff. UFOs. There's stuff that's, man. If you don't get out of here with that, like we are so skeptical now. It's hilarious. It's really funny to me because I'm a sci-fi nerd. I enjoy Star Wars and Star Trek and all that stuff. And so it's just hilarious to me that there's these people trying to convince us now of all times. And everybody's like, I ain't even got the bandwidth. Maybe this is real, but I don't have time to think about it. But back then, of course, there was no media. And so there's no joking. Like you see Jesus walking on water, you're going to be freaked out. And so we have here a powerful moment because everybody's scared, but only Peter speaks up. Everybody's scared, but only Peter speaks up. So, and 26, I already said this ago, so 27. But Jesus immediately said to them, they're crying out in fear, "Ah!" Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. It's me, y'all, it's me. I don't know if that would make me that much more comfortable or even more afraid, but he's like, it's me. Peter's response is bananas. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. How many of y'all, that would have been your first thought? Your first thought online, would that have been your first thought? Oh, that's Jesus? Okay, if that's you, come on in. No, if that's you, tell me to get in the water and walk to you. That's what Peter thought. Peter is a brave somebody. He is crazy. And to think he's the one that has that rocky relationship, Jesus had to be like, get behind me, Satan, because Peter's like, nah, bro, ain't nobody gonna kill you. This is not gonna happen. It's like, you speaking the words of Satan, hush. But that guy, that Peter. So I'm pulling a lot of different scripture. Anyway, Peter it's blowing my mind. I'm thinking about this. If I'm sitting on a Carnival cruise ship and I see somebody walking on the water, that somebody's like, yo, can I come to you? And so that's what Peter does. And so it's amazing to me because it says here, he says, come. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on water, and came toward Jesus. That's insane to me. It's absolutely insane. But it's very literally starting a faith walk. Right? Very literally starting a faith walk. And so preachers, and I learned this early on when in my ministry, preachers would talk about get out of the boat, get out of the boat. They preach whole messages, get out the boat, walk by faith, not by sight, get out of the boat. What is God calling you to do? What has he said, come to me about? Get out the boat. And so he had a get out the boat moment. Have you had a get out of the boat moment? Amen. You had a get out the boat moment where now it's not just that God is telling you to do something, it's that he's telling you to do something that is insane. He's telling you to do something that does not make sense. He's telling you to do something that goes against conventional wisdom. And it may not be getting out of a boat and walking on water, but it's something that requires absolute faith. It requires you being convinced that it's the Lord telling you to go and do that thing. I think about myself when I think about my own testimony and moving to Jacksonville when I was born and raised in North Carolina and Eastern North Carolina, and I was known in my area of Durham. I was in Durham. I went to college at UNC Chapel Hill. I moved over to Durham. I taught for 12 years, and so between my connections at UNC Chapel Hill, my connections in my fraternity, my connections through music, my in ministry, my connections through teaching, I was connected everywhere in the triangle. Wherever I went, I could get the hookup. Wherever I went, there was a platform available. This is before social media is what it is now. But I was set. I was set. If I wanted to become a pastor, there was a path for me. If I wanted to just grow in the church that I was in and get hired on as a full-time minister at some point, the pathway was there. Everything was laid out for me to do this thing in a way that would have been much more simple. I was at a church. I was not the young adult pastor, the number 2 guy behind the young adult pastor. Me and my wife were the number 2 couple behind the young adult pastor and his wife. In fact, they were here, the people that were the young adult pastor, they were here on opening day because they live in this area now. But what happened was, it's a church, I'm not going to talk about the church, because I don't want, it's not about them, but I'm just going to say, the church had 10,000 people. The church had 10,000 people. I was number 2 in the young adult ministry. It was primarily consisting of young adults. If I wanted to, I could have just played my cards right. And I would have been set for ministry. But in the summer of 2013, my wife and I went to her because I heard I talked to another student of mine, former student of mine, and she was saying that her and her husband were moving to South Carolina to help somebody else start a church. I'm like, really? Really? Part of the reason why you in faith is because of, my faith walk, and we're close. And so, Lord, if you got somewhere, you sending her, I know that I must just not be listening clearly enough. And so we fasted and prayed. It was right around Father's Day weekend. Me and my wife fasted and prayed for 3 days. And after that 3 days, the city, Jacksonville, was independently revealed to each of us. A city, mind you, we had never visited before, never been to, didn't know anybody here, okay? I just knew it was a city on the East Coast that had a decent sized population of African Americans. That's literally all I knew. So there was 6 to 10 cities that we were, had strategically thought of. And I'd actually been to some of them, like Charlotte or Atlanta. And so I'd been to those before, never been to Jacksonville a day in my life. And at the end of our fast, Sunday after church, come home, hey babe, I think I know where we're supposed to go. And she says, all right, let's get ready for Jacksonville. Okay, I heard it, you heard it, let's go. We were going to take 1 year and try to recruit people from our church of 10,000 people to come down with us, okay? And then Erin sent an email to the KIP team down here, because she used to work at KIP in this country part of North Carolina called Halifax, Roanoke Rapids. And so at the time she was working at Duke University. And so what happened was she sent an email just saying, hey, we're going to be moving down there next year. If y'all happen to have any openings, we just want to go ahead and start the conversation now. Just start the conversation now. They sit back and say, hey, actually, we might have something for you right now. Right now. And so it was so shocking that I was like, hey, I spoke to the pastor, like, hey, what do we do about this? Like, I'm not sure about it. Like, listen, you don't want to ignore what God might be trying to do here. And so you might just want to say, okay, let's see if the door is fully open. And so what happened was this. They decided to fly her down for an interview on a Monday. Like, remember, it was mid-June. This is early July when they flew her down for an interview. Okay, they flew her down for an interview on Monday. They offered her the job before she got back on the plane. On Tuesday, okay, they asked her for my resume. Okay, on Wednesday, they called me and offered me a job. Okay, that was how it happened. And instead of a year, 6 weeks after we got the call to move to Jacksonville, we were in Jacksonville. House, jobs, everything. Completely by faith. So I wouldn't know none of y'all if it was just about seeing what was going well and following through on that. We literally had to say, okay, is that you that we're hearing, Lord? Tell me to come to you. And here we are. 10 years later, at this point, we've been in Jacksonville for 10 years. And so I have some personal get out the boat moments where it's like, are you sure this is you? Okay, and then I'm off. Now, that doesn't mean everything happens smoothly, because everything doesn't happen smoothly for Peter. Because if you keep looking at the text here, you see Peter get down and walk toward Jesus. It says in verse 30, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. He lost his faith. The faith that he had to get out the boat and walk is not the same faith that it takes to actually do the walking. It takes one kind of faith to get out and walk. It takes another type of faith to get out and do the walking, to actually carry out the action. It took one type of faith to believe that we were going to Jacksonville. It took another faith to actually pack up all our stuff, say goodbye to everyone we love, and move to a city where we knew no one. It took a whole different kind of faith. It took a whole different kind of faith to begin working at different places with different people. It took a whole different kind of faith. It's taken a whole different kind of faith to continue on this journey when we haven't seen, the material blow up success that we believe, and still holding on to the faith that God has told, the vision that God showed me beginning back in 2008, still holding on to that with a confident hope. Okay? The confident hope. Now, does that mean I haven't been shaken? No. Just like Peter, I've been shaken. Just like Peter, I've had struggles. Just like Peter, I've had down days. Just like Peter, I've seen the wind and the difficulties, and I've gotten scared. But just like Peter, I cry out, Lord, save me. Lord, save me. Lord, save me. And so, when we're on our faith journeys, there are circumstances along the journey that can cause you to lose your faith. How you respond to that determines on how you proceed. For Peter, he saw the winds and the waves, and his response was to begin to doubt his place, to doubt his position, to doubt whether he was on a strong foundation. And because of that, he began to sink.